been sleeping through the night all week, but am waking up still exhausted all week.
Mm.
And so I'm like, I'm just kind of like avoiding anything. Like I'm
Just
off
trying to feel
caffeine
it out.
this week. I'm off everything. Just trying to like see if that's a
Mm.
thing because like it could just be the weather. It could be my allergies. I'm not concerned about it, but I'm just trying to like avoid anything that would stop a restful sleep
Hmm.
to let me kind of reset.
This is like sleeping medicine essentially for me.
Oh, it is normally for me too, but I figured if I'm tired all day anyway, I'll probably sleep fine
Hmm.
and then, figure it out.
Fair enough.
Because I've been sleeping better since I've been losing weight because
Oh, sure.
it's
I'm
easier.
I'm
Like the
sure.
sleep
Just
apnea and
generally,
stuff
yeah,
is getting easier.
100%. What are you at now?
I'm going next week, so
Okay.
I don't have any updates, and I only weigh myself at the
Yeah,
place.
I think there's no reason to do it any other time.
Yeah, otherwise I'm gonna get too focused on that
Yeah, it's
number.
easier to think big picture with that.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that this week I will officially hit my wedding goal.
That would be great. And then I'd
Yeah,
say
and
keep
then I'll have
going.
a whole like a month early. I'm still gonna keep
Yeah.
going.
Hell
I'm still
yeah,
gonna
man.
stay on it, but it'll be nice to have hit it a month early because it was a big goal to set.
It's a big goal.
And I'm really hopeful to like start seeing results like in the problem places
Sure.
because that's been the only disheartening part is like I'm not seeing any results like in my stomach. I'm seeing results like on my legs, on my arms,
Yeah,
my
but I
face. Like,
am.
well,
I
I
think I
appreciate
think
that.
it's when you can after a while,
Yeah,
like when you don't see someone in person close up,
yeah,
it's hard to evaluate yourself that way.
no, for sure. I mean, well, and
I think
the
it's
only
flattening a little bit more,
mm,
like that's and it probably just that's the way it's going to flatten out before anything else.
yeah, and it's just I'm not at a point where I can start doing like crunches and stuff yet.
Yeah,
But once I get to that point, it should go a lot faster when I can actively
right.
work
I was
those
going to say
muscles
like
more.
once you can get your
Yeah.
body to a point where you can do more vigorous exercises and then you're
Yeah.
able,
And specifically
like
target the muscles that are under there. Like
yeah,
those are the muscles that I'm having trouble
sure.
with. Like, cause I don't have a medicine ball. Like, I know I could do
Yeah.
like medicine ball twists,
Hmm.
but I'm trying to get to the point with like
I have one if you
cardio
need
and
it.
squats. Maybe I might take you up on that
Hmm.
because that's like the thing that's what's next for me is to be able to do like full workouts instead of because right now my workouts
Hmm.
are a lot of arm and a lot
Sure.
of using my body weight in squats and I've had to up my squats as I've lost weight because it's
Good. Yeah.
less
Great.
weight. So I end up doing oh shit that's a 90 squats a day.
Your legs are gonna be like fucking tree
I
trunks.
could kick a cinder block.
Yeah.
Well technically anyone could kick a cinder block.
Yeah, I mean, we all could kick a
We
cinder
all could
block.
do that.
I just wouldn't
um
advise it.
no, but I do 3 sets of 15 twice a day, so
Okay.
that's 40, that's 90 a day. And then I do 40 like lats and
Hmm.
then 80 curls
Okay.
every day. And then I various cardio as well. The
Sure.
weather has really fucked with me going outside because I cannot go out in that
Hmm.
for any. You saw me during those pictures. That was taking pictures.
Sure.
So, but I've been trying to do similar numbers and just trying to keep the step count up on my
Yeah.
watch and go from there. So, we're
Excellent.
doing it. We're doing it.
Yeah, I'm just excited for the day that you're gonna come to Planet Fitness with me.
I mean, dude, once I get there, I'm going.
Yes.
Once I get to the point where like my regimen is too easy and I need to up it with like professional equipment, that's my plan.
Yes.
So I'm trying my best to almost like trick my mind because I'm very like you know me. I'm a very emotional human being.
I would
And
agree.
so like when I get too disheartened, I just can't muster it.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I'm trying like by like just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, like whatever. And then it's like I will see the results over time, like after a long time. But until then, it's just like, yeah, I'm just doing the thing, like just,
Mhm.
almost like tricking my body to be like, nothing's happening. Don't
Right.
worry about it.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's working. It's it's doing its thing. So that's all I really give a shit about.
Yeah.
So, all right, all right. We are
Ready?
live. Let's
Roll.
do I have? Yes, I do. Okay. I was for some reason thought I didn't have the video clip of the intro, and I was like, well, I guess we're just
That wouldn't be
having
ideal.
that. Well, I didn't tell you. So last week, luckily, you didn't have to suffer through this with me. But last week, for the first time in like 2 months, my like Wednesday D&D crew had time to get together. It was me, Keith, and like James, who you met, he's a groomsman, and then our friend Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And I log onto the restream, start the restream, and I realized I never put in my new card information when I got a new card. And so I was down to like the base level and nothing was saved and nothing was in there. And I'm like,
Gotcha.
tell me I lost all of those, like all of our graphics and shit. I'm like, but luckily when I put in the new card info, it all just came back.
Thank
It was
goodness for
like,
that.
no, we had it all for you. We assumed. I'm like,
Very good.
yeah. Because that would have been, I don't even know if I still have that video. I mean, I have it on my old computer,
Right.
which is where all the drops are. So I'd have to go on there anyway. But, all right, I'm ready.
I'm ready. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Oh my God, we're finally here.
We sure are.
We made it. We're through. We're through the trials and
Wilderness.
tribulations of season 7. Yeah, the wilderness of season 7, all the way onto what is arguably our favorite consistent episode of the season.
Yeah, no, that it is a nice week.
Yeah, I won't say that it's always our favorite episode of every season, but I
Yeah,
think you have a good chance of us having a good time on the
100%.
best of the rest.
100%.
Ugh, I don't know why my voice sounds like I've been screaming at clouds all day, but
Have
it
you?
does, and we're all gonna suffer through that together.
That's all right. I don't mind. I've suffered through a lot. I've suffered through a lot of worse this week in terms of hearing a voice because I have seen the national anthem clip
Oh,
from the home run derby, which by the way, I saw the next day that she like checked herself into
yeah.
rehab. So good for
Which,
her.
seriously, honestly, it really changes the whole narrative to me.
Hmm.
For those of you who are unaware, the MLB All Star Game happened the week we're recording this, and the national anthem was sung by a woman named Ingrid Andress, and it is the worst national anthem ever recorded.
It's definitely going to be a
I mean,
notorious event.
yeah,
Ah,
seriously, it's right up there. It's worse than the Fergie
Fergie,
national
yeah.
anthem. It's worse than any national anthem you've heard. I strongly recommend going to listen to it. And what Nick is
Because
referencing
you should
is
just hate
Ingrid
yourself.
Andress came out the next day and in a stunningly courageous move, like really truly I mean that, owned up to it and said, I was extremely drunk and I'm checking myself into rehab. Like that was the wake up call. So
Yeah,
like good for her. That's
absolutely.
now the narrative is like we all have to, you have to hit rock bottom to get better. It appears as if that was her rock
Let's
bottom and
hope.
she realized and moved forward and all I hope for is positivity.
Absolutely.
But it was a terrible rendition of the
It
national anthem.
was. It
There
was.
is no denying that.
No, can't really get around it.
But thankfully for us, that was the worst music I listened to this week.
Yeah, great point. Likewise.
Yeah, we had 10 albums of music to listen to this week. I'll go over a little bit of the best of the rest format in case you happen to be catching it for the first time. So this
That's
is
right.
something that goes on after every season, and we decided as a unit, as a Totem Talks, that we can't listen to every album by every artist we've covered. Some artists we've covered have over 90 albums.
Yeah, that would put a wrench in things.
Yeah, that's definitely not something we can do in a weekly format. Uh,
Imagine trying to go over all of it too.
yeah,
On the episode where we have like Willie Nelson, it's
yeah,
7 hours long because we had to talk about 90 of his albums.
yeah. Day 4 of the Willie Nelson podcast. Here we go. Day 39 of Buckethead's
Yeah,
discography.
we're halfway through.
Yeah, we're halfway there. Yeah, so for that reason, we cover 3 albums by every artist. We do our best to make it like a wide range. We go with the first album, the last album, and then somewhere in the middle, typically the highest charting or highest selling album, or most iconic is our
Hmm.
fallback as well. There's some albums which just it may not have been the one that sold the most, but it's the one that has the song or it's the one that has
Right.
the thing. And the best of the rest is a chance for us to say, here's a number of albums for that we didn't get to cover this season from artists that we liked,
But we
from
would have
artists
liked to have covered
that
these
we would have
albums.
liked to have covered this season. And that's the vibe. We rank them
Yes,
1 to 5. We rank ours and each other's.
that's right.
Um, Apple on a
And
snake.
it's always
Um,
really, really hard. That's like the
yes,
hardest part of every season is ranking the best of the rest albums. Like way
I
harder than
couldn't
any
agree
scores
more.
for any artists or any sort of organization or research.
I had to
This is
break
it.
out the notebook, which you can't see because it's blue.
No, oh yeah,
That's funny. Well, but I can do this. You can see the paper on the inside.
that's true. I can sort of
So there
yes.
is a notebook here. That was funny. I held that up fully expecting it to be visible on
Right,
camera,
but nope, fully invisible.
which is weird because I am actually in this purple studio. I don't
Yeah,
know
I know. I
why.
don't understand why that would happen.
It's
Must
super
be the
weird.
internet.
Yeah, internet's weird. It just creates blue screens that don't exist. But that's pretty much it. After this episode, the this is the penultimate episode of the 7th season. We'll have the finale, the
That's
award
right.
show next week. Next week for you, probably next week for us. It just involves a lot of Excel
Yeah.
spreadsheet work for me, so I'll see if I can get all that done. But I should be able to.
I think you'll be fine.
I feel confident.
I'm confident in you.
I thank you. I needed to hear that,
Yeah, of course, I got you.
and I think that's
Yeah, then we'll do season 7.5, and
yeah.
we'll see what happens from there.
That's as is our want, our whims, and our whatever
Yes,
else. We'll continue
quims.
on. Well, yeah, our whims and then our more whims.
Yes, right.
We're just full of whims.
So many whims. We're very whimsical.
All right, so I think we should get going here.
I agree.
And Nick, why don't you take us away here with
Okay.
your 5th rank?
Right. So we're going to count down from 5. And I'll tell you, this was tough for me. Um, basically, up until I got through all 5 albums this week, I had no idea what order they were going to be in. And the last one that I listened to, as we'll discuss, ended up being like, oh, okay, this is number 1. But 2 through 5 are all really close. And on any given week, the order could have changed. So just know that I really enjoyed all of these albums, 2 through 5. But I am going to kick things off at number 5 with the album Secret Treaties by Blue Oyster Cult. Okay.
Okay,
And
okay.
I'll start by saying some of the things that brought this one down a little bit for me, which is mainly that this is actually the only Blue Oyster Cult album that does not feature the iconic Buck Dharma vocals. As we know when we covered them, several different members of the band sing throughout all the albums, but it just so happens that the ones that ended up big hits for them were usually sung by Buck Dharma. But he is not singing on this record. However, He is playing guitar, and that's sounding really good. I mean, in terms of the music, none of their hits were actually on this album, but that didn't really matter for the quality of it. Like this is pretty much proto metal, that era at its best. I would put this album up there with the rest of their discography. I would put it up there with some Deep Purple albums. It was actually named by Melody Maker the best rock album of all time in the year 1975. So if that gives you any sort of idea as to how good this record is, I I can't say really a negative thing about it. I mean, the performances are good. The songwriting is strong. The lyrics are all written by people outside of the group. We know that that was something that they were doing before. So Patti Smith contributes, Sandy Pearlman and Richard Meltzer are the lyricists on here, but a really strong proto metal album. It's basically as good as you can get from a group like Blue Oyster Cult. Maybe one or two Buck Dharma songs on here instead might have pushed them up to 4 or 3. I don't know. Um, but it was a whole section of their discography that I had never heard any of these songs before, and I really enjoyed it. Like Blue Oyster Cult, definitely a band I'll revisit post podcast.
Yeah, listen. I also had this album ranked at number 5, and it's for one specific reason.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a little bit more rock and roll than I think the average listener would expect from Blue Oyster
Hmm.
Cult. Uh, but it's missing the one thing that I raged about during their episode. Why don't they do more harmonies? They're so
Yeah,
good at them.
there were a few, but not
There
a
were a
ton.
few, but not nearly enough again.
That's fair.
They're literally so good at harmonies. You hear like end counterpoint singing. Like, look at Don't Fear
Hmm.
the Reaper.
Yep.
Look at the blueprint of how good their harmonics and counterpoint can be. Why do they never do it again?
I don't know.
It reminds me of this is going to be such a niche reference, but Ben Simmons,
Okay.
former Philadelphia 76er,
Sure.
who never took 3-point shots. And when he did take 3-point shots, he made them. But he never
Should I
took
look
them.
that up? Is
Ever.
he 100%? Oh,
He's
he's
not 100%.
100% shooting on threes on 0 attempts career.
He's not 100%. But I always remember when I would see him actually shoot the threes instead of like the weird like half court buzzer beaters and nonsense that also
Sure.
count as threes to your percentage.
Yeah.
He was like decent at them. And all off season it would look like he was working on them. And then he would just never shoot them in game
Sure,
ever. He
right.
would only drive it to the rim. And it's like, brother, what are you doing? We have a Joel Embiid to do that. You need to be on the perimeter.
Yeah.
And that's what Blue Oyster Cult is to me. Somebody who is so freaking good at harmonies and counterpoint that I want to hear it, and I just never get it. I get little tastes here and there. And that's why they were 5 to me, because I
Fair
was
enough.
just a little disappointed.
Fair, totally fair point.
Still a great album though.
Oh yeah, I
Still
really
a really
like
good
it.
album to listen to. Once I resigned myself that I wasn't going to get my special treat. And that's pretty much it. All right. My turn. My
Your
turn
turn.
for my number 5.
Yes.
This was really like 1 and 5 were really tough for me.
Okay.
Because I felt like all 5 of mine were relatively consistent, and then 4 and 5 could have easily flip flopped even right
Okay.
now,
That's
but they're
interesting.
not going to.
Okay.
After a lot of we're getting some arguments that Blue Oyster Cult does not equal Ben Simmons. I don't
Well-
mean in the way his career flamed out. I just mean that only in his 3-point shot ability versus actual performance.
Sure.
A very, very small facet of Ben Simmons' career is in the entirety of Blue Oyster Cult. I prefer Blue Oyster Cult, though. I want to be clear.
As do I.
Now, back to my ranking. You know what? I lied. I am going to switch them right now. I
All
read
right.
both. We're doing it live, folks. We're
Okay, I
doing
love
it
it. That's
live.
okay. I've done that before in the past.
All right.
But I had a very clear number 5 and a very clear number 1 for you. Everything else was a mess.
That's fair. My number 5 is Revival by John Fogerty.
Okay.
It was almost my number 4. I just flip-flopped number
Sure.
5 and number 4, but I think I agree with it. I really do agree with it actually. The more that I'm reading it, Fogerty sounds great. This is an
He
album from the
really
mid
does.
2000s and his voice sounds incredible still.
Yes.
The only issues that I had with this album were that it's very similar to every other John Fogerty song, which is very similar to every Creedence Clearwater Revival song.
Hmm.
That's literally all it is.
Yeah,
He
that's
does a
fair.
good job. He's got a really cheeky song called Creedence Song, which is literally a song about how good Creedence Clearwater Revival songs are. Basically, it's like, hey, no matter where you are, what you're doing, like throw on that Creedence song.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I mean, you have the right to do that, and I respect it. I respect it.
Yeah, understandable.
So it's got that like classic Fogerty CCR vibe. It's got that good stuff. It's like a rock based country album, which is good. The only my only negative for it was that one, it's hard to find. It's only on YouTube. You
Yeah,
can't
that is
find it on
unfortunate.
streaming. And two, all of the things that are good about it also mean that I've heard all of it before.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. That's fair. I actually have that as 3 for you.
Okay,
Very critically well received record as well, I
sure.
should point out. And I guess I the reason why it is where it is for me is because I partially agree with you and I partially see it a little bit differently. Like, yes, it is akin to CCR,
Yeah,
but I didn't feel like he was just rehashing his CCR career in writing this album. Like, it feels to me like that is just the authentic voice with which John Fogerty writes.
oh,
And when he is,
100%.
when he's really in his element, writing the best CCR-esque sounding type of swamp rock songs, then that's when he's at his best. And I felt like that was clear on this album, which I especially wasn't expecting in 2007 for him to sound that good vocally, for the songs to, I think, hold up really well, pretty much track for track all the way through. Like, there are other albums on your list where I was able to say, because of this one thing, I'm gonna push it down a little bit, push it down a little bit. Like, this little thing
Sure.
is gonna kind of knock it compared to some of the other records on the list. But I didn't really have anything for Revival. Like, I had no strong negatives that stood out, that kind of, when I compared it to some of the other albums, where I was like, oh, but it's got this going on, because I just felt like every song was good on its own. Um, and it was just Fogerty writing the way that he writes best.
Yeah. Listen, I was certainly not implying that he was just rehashing the CCR
Sure,
days. Uh, John Fogerty
but
is
there is a
CCR.
sound. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Also, Ben
John Fo-
Montench played keyboards on this album
Oh yeah, that is
from
true.
the
He did.
Heartbreakers.
So, good on that. Love to see some Ben Montench around.
Agreed. Now, are we doing this where I do 5, then you do 5-4, then I do 4-3, etc., as we've done in years
Oh
past?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I'll go right into 4. So this one, it was almost my 5.
sure.
And really, it was only my almost my 5 because I should switch to that. It was only almost my 5 because the vibe is so incredibly different on this album versus every other album.
Okay,
But I had to move it up because the vocals are just that good. And that is Close to You by the
sure.
Carpenters
Okay,
is my number 4. And exactly what I said, it's more of a pop than like a rock oriented album. It's more low key. It's a softer album all the way through. It opens up with one of the Carpenters' biggest songs, "We've Only Just
hmm,
Begun." It's a big popular song. Uh, like the Carpenters just sound so clean and so good. The harmonies are always so good. Karen Carpenter's vocal is just really effortless sounding all the way through, and you can hear the emotion in her voice. The only reason this isn't higher is one, they have a cover. So they have a
Several.
cover of, well, yes, but they have a cover of Help in particular. And if you're going to do a cover, I've said this before, it needs to be either better or extremely different than the original. And I think this one is almost different enough, but not better and certainly more boring than the yeah, exactly. Uh I just felt like that's a song that the lyrics themselves don't really carry the song. They just don't. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
and that's
energy
a
does.
Lennon McCartney
Hmm.
I mean, not problem, but that's Lennon McCartney's thing. The lyrics weren't too deep on Help.
No, but I mean, they're not even bad. It's like the counterpoint in the Beatles version of it and
Yeah.
the energy of the Beatles version of it are just
Well,
so
yeah, so that's
good
what I
that
was
it
going to say.
loses so much without the counterpoint.
Yes, you lose a lot without the counterpoint, and you lose a lot by lowering that tempo because both of those things mixed with what are relatively average lyrics, especially for the Beatles,
Hmm.
it, it falls flat. So the cover fell flat, and the other songs are very good, and the harmonies are very good, and I would always listen to Karen Carpenter sing. She could sing me lullabies
Yeah,
all day.
she was great.
But I was really torn between making that 5 and 4. I moved it to 4. I don't regret it, but it definitely wouldn't have moved higher than 4 to
Sure.
me.
Yeah, this was my 5.
Yeah,
This was my clear 10 of the week. Not that I disliked the album or thought it was bad, but it's too saccharine for me.
it's yeah,
Like,
it's a way it's very different from every other album we listened to this week, which was why I initially had it at 5.
mhm.
And I just, for me, like I don't know, that just felt a little unfair to me.
That's I get it. It's just the style of music is just the least likely to interest me of
I get
all
it.
10 albums that we listen to. And the other thing that you started to hint at is in terms of covers, like their cover of Help, I thought was not good. And there are a couple of other songs on here that we've listened to on this show, whether cover, I think Deep Purple did a cover of Help that we also listened to. Um, Reason to Believe by Tim Hardin. We haven't covered the original, but we covered Rod Stewart's version of that song,
Yeah.
which I think is one of the best things Rod Stewart ever did. And this version was so much weaker. Uh, Baby It's You. We haven't listened to the original Shirelles version, but we listened to the Beatles do it on Please Please Me on the very first episode of this podcast. And their version is so much better than this one. Like every song that I recognized, I was like, oh, this is by far the worst version of it I've ever heard.
Yeah,
However,
the covers were
the covers were all bad compared
different.
to every other version I've ever heard. Here's the
Yeah,
thing that saves this album: the title track is one of the most beautiful songs ever written. The title
I
track is
completely agree.
so good. It's insanely good. The rest of it, I could probably live without, with the exception of enjoying Karen's singing voice so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I listen. I fully agree with you. It really boils down to Revival versus this. I would never need to listen to Revival again. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I if I want to listen to John Fogerty,
Yeah.
if I want to
Listen to
listen to
CCR.
I'll listen to CCR, I'll listen to Centerfield, I'll listen to John Fogerty's stuff. But if I want to listen to like what I consider the best of the Carpenters, there's one to
It would
two
be
songs on
close
this
to you
album that
on
are on here.
repeat.
Close to You. I also do like We've Only Just
That's
Begun.
fair.
The the message behind that song is really nice, and it's a good lilt. It's a good lilty song.
Sure.
You need them every once in a
Yeah.
while. You don't need 40 minutes of them.
Not necessarily, no. All right, so I'm gonna go into my number 4. And like I said, 2 through 5 are all like it's razor thin the difference between them all. And this is really close. And I surprised myself with where I put some things here. And for number 4, I put Into the Great Wide Open by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Okay. Okay.
and there's a lot to like here. Um, One, it was kind of like a big comeback for them, putting this out in the early '90s and having two pretty big hits on it, "Learning to Fly" and "Into the Great Wide Open." Of the two, I think the title track is the better song. I enjoy the story of it. And did you know? So they made a music video of it that stars Johnny Depp as Eddie, the character from the song.
Okay. I did not
Faye
know that.
Dunaway plays his manager. Oh my god, what's the guy's name? Joey from Friends is also in the
Dave
music video.
Coulier. No, not. That's Dave. That's Joey.
Yeah.
Uncle Joey from Full House.
Yes, correct.
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc. Yeah. So there's a bunch of people in the music video, which I think is kind of fun. Um, but the things that are good, there's a lot of Jeff Lynne. You can hear a lot of almost like traveling Wilburys ness about this because Lynn and Petty are writing together, which they obviously also did the Wilburys. I think Lynn brings a lot to the studio end of things as well. I think you hear a lot of that Mike Campbell iconic guitar sound, like we talked about it when we covered the Heartbreakers. You could give me an instrumental of a song I've never heard before, and if Mike Campbell's taking a guitar solo, I'm like, that's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers right there. Tom sounds really good. There's no real drop off in the singles in terms of the quality versus the rest of the tracks. Like I really enjoyed this album from beginning to end. I liked it a lot. I think the place where this album suffers and the reason why it was only 4 compared to some of the other ones is just like the range of styles and sounds on the songs. Like it really does kind of fit into a certain pocket with all of these songs that the albums that I have ranked above it are just you get a good chunk of more diversity of sound within the albums comparatively. And that's the reason why it is where it is. My last count, I did want to say there was one, um, I forget who the critic was who mentioned that this is sort of like the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers that are halfway in between where they were for Damn the Torpedoes and Petty's first solo album, Full Moon Fever. And it feels like a little bit of a mix of those two sounds. And I think that's a pretty good description of what you get here. So a very strong album from them. I liked it a lot. If it was a little bit more musically diverse, it might have jumped up 1 or 2 spots for me.
Okay. Yeah. So you were referencing Rolling Stone critic Park Puterbaugh.
Oh yeah.
That is who said the album was like a cross between Full Moon Fever and
Mhm.
Damn the Torpedoes.
Totally hear it if you know both of those
Yeah,
albums.
fully agree. So I had this ranked at number 3 for you.
Okay.
But a lot of the same things. It's a really good showing for Tom Petty. What held it out of the top 2 slots for me was a similarity in the songs
Yep.
as well.
There you go.
The whole album is good, very strong. Learning to Fly and Into the Great Wide Open are the 2 big hits, as you mentioned. But there is a little bit of sameness about it,
hmm
which, if you're a big fan of Tom Petty, you're going to love. And I
Yeah. Sure.
enjoyed
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot, but definitely lacked a little bit of the diversity that if you're going to sit down and listen to 43, 44 minutes of music, you want a little bit of diversity, a palate cleanser
Definitely.
somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a big reason why my number 3 edged it out. So I'll go into that. And you can't write this stuff. What I have at number 3, the album is called Trilogy, uh, by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And um, this was again really tough. It could have gone either way. But at the end of the day, I think one of this album's greatest strengths is the diversity in songwriting and the risk taking. Like what I find so interesting about Emerson, Lake and Palmer as a group is they were extremely popular for a prog rock outfit. The first 9 albums that they put out in a row all went gold in the US. They were packing stadiums everywhere they went, including doing a live album where they did almost all arrangements of Modest Mussorgsky, um, classic Russian classical music. Like, how many other bands could do that and then turn it into a gold record? Um,
Zero.
exactly.
Hmm.
So I love the experimentation on this album. The musicianship is pretty much out of this world on any Emerson Lake and Palmer record. And then w you tie it all together with the one song that you can pull as, like, a great hit single for them, which you have with the beautiful "From the Beginning," one of the best Emerson, Lake and Palmer songs, like, one of the most beautiful acoustic guitar songs. Really cool arrangement. I've actually been teaching, "From the Beginning" to one of my students, and it's been really, really interesting to learn, um that whole acoustic guitar intro and the progressions they use. It's just a very interesting piece and an awesome song, and what I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Listen, I'm fully with you. I have this as your number two. And for all the same things, it just sounds so good. One thing that I really wanted to bring out is the multi-part, the endless enigma.
Mhm,
So that
mhm,
starts off super weird. I'll be honest with
totally.
you.
But I love the
Uh,
way it builds.
yeah,
You
within the
start
first 30
weird.
seconds of listening to this
Mhm.
album, you get the endless enigma part one, and you go, "Oh, this is a prog rock album for sure." Nobody else would have a human heartbeat as an instrument, but it really builds and crescendos in on itself, and then there's the endless enigma part two as track three, and then trilogy as the track one of side two, and you really get some really some strong instrumental like plays on each
Oh,
other,
yeah.
and you get these motifs going throughout, and then on top of all that you get some pretty excellent vocals, as
Yeah, Greg
you
Lake is
would come
awesome.
to expect from Greg Lake. One of my big issues that I had when he was a member of King Crimson was that they didn't let him sing enough. I was like, please just let Greg Lake sing more. And thankfully, in Emerson, Lake and Palmer, they do let him sing more. Uh, Although there are still a couple songs where he's not singing, some
Yeah,
instrumentals, some, it's not perfect for
yeah,
me, but I do still really enjoy all of it. And as you mentioned, and as I'll repeat, like the diversity of sound from track to track is really good,
yeah.
and you get one of the top instrument or acoustic tracks from the beginning. It
So
is
good.
excellent.
It's so
It's
good.
it's poignant. It's reflective. It's all the shit that I love
Mhm.
about acoustic music. Like anybody who can make an acoustic guitar and a guy singing sound like that, it like you're really top notch, and
Yeah,
it's just an excellent showing. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, it was my number two.
excellent.
That's
All
it.
right, so it's time to move on to your 3?
My number three. That is correct. And listen, I'll be honest with you. This was well, it was tough. It was tough. The last few that I have are all
Yeah.
everything was tough this week, as it always is. The ranking. After a little bit of deliberation with myself, because that's my whole council here.
Yeah, right, yeah.
My council of elders was just my own brain. I went with Rough Mix by Pete Townsend and Ronnie Lane, but we covered
Yes.
Pete Townsend this
Correct.
year, so I put Pete Townsend here. But it is Pete Townsend and Ronnie Lane both. And we did cover Ronnie Lane previously for
Yes,
Faces
we
and Small
did.
Faces, and he was excellent when we covered him. And
That's
guess
right.
what? They worked together flawlessly on this album. This album is great to have uh, the two of them. You can hear, I would argue, within the first 15 to 20 seconds of each song, who wrote it
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
between Pete Townsend or Ronnie Lane.
Sure, but the
Uh,
benefit of that is you get a pretty wide variety of
yeah,
sounds on
and
this record.
that is exactly what I like. Truly, it being called Rough Mix absolutely fits because it almost feels like oil and water sometimes with how
Mhm.
different the songs are, but you're never bored. There's
Sure.
never a moment of sameness or where things are blending together. Every song is incredibly different. There's only one time on this album where the same guy is the first credited writer for both songs, and it's like towards the end of side 2.
Right. Yeah.
They really alternate them. And I think that is great. Uh it doesn't have like the big hit
No, no.
as some of these will have, like we when we covered, when we talked about the Carpenters, it had some of their biggest hits on there. It doesn't have the big hit, but at the same time, it didn't need to. My Baby Gives It Away as the first song, so quintessential Pete Townsend.
Yeah.
Immediately you can hear it, and then Nowhere to Run is the second track. It's the first Ronnie Lane track, and I think just in those first two, you just get the the crazy mix between them.
Yeah, the
And then
rough mix.
also, if you ever, yeah, the rough mix. If you ever wanted to hear Ronnie Lane do his absolute best Elton John, you listen to Cat Melody, because that is Ronnie Lane saying, "I can write an Elton John song any day," and he does.
Yeah.
Because I who love Elton John was like, "This sounds like Elton John,"
Fair enough.
which is honestly very high praise coming from
Yeah,
him.
absolutely.
And so that's my number three.
Yeah, so I actually have that as your number 2. Um, and I liked the eclectic mix of tunes on here. I really liked when they worked together on Rough Mix. It's an instrumental, but I think it was a really good and compelling instrumental piece. And I think beneficial to this season, what's clear here is Townsend is the stronger of the two, for me at least.
Sure.
And his tracks, I think, are just generally a little bit stronger. His vocals are definitely way better. He's a
His
much better
vocals are
singer.
definitely better.
Uh, but this album all hinged on, I guess, track 9, Street in the City. Like, I was enjoying the album and the eclecticism, but the first time I heard what I thought was like a truly great song was Street in the City by Townsend on the B side of this. And I was like, oh, this is the arrangement. Now
Yeah.
I am seeing like the potential of songwriting and Pete coming into this record. And it and it also even kind of had some laughs in it because the last tune, "Till the Rivers All Run Dry," it turns out it was a cover. I didn't realize this till right now because I'm taking a look at it. But I was like, "Oh, this is kinda like a fun, cheeky British, attempt at writing American country music," which, the Rolling Stones were known for doing for some of their stuff too. But I found it endearing. I found it, like, silly in an endearing way for, a good little country song thrown in there. Again, just showing the amount of range that you can find on this record.
Yeah. Listen, fully with you on that. And I'll tell you what, it didn't give me the ick, which did happen with another Pete
Yeah,
Townsend album we
that's
covered
correct.
in Psychoderelict.
Yeah,
So
it's always nice to not get that.
always nice to not get the full blown ick. Now here's the question for you, Nick.
Alright, I'm listening.
I know the audience won't be spoiled if I give my number two
No,
here,
of
but
course not.
you will be.
I will.
So are we interested in maybe you doing your, because you've done up to three? So if you
Yes.
give your 2-1 back to back, and then I give my 2-1, then neither of us are spoiled for ourselves. Because
Well,
here's the thing,
whoever gives
audience.
2 next is getting spoiled.
But yeah, but I mean, I guess that's true.
No matter what happens, I know what your next 2 albums are, and no matter what I say next, you know
That's,
what my 2 are.
I mean, you're not wrong about
I'm
any of
not.
that. I'm just trying to keep it fun for us because,
Okay.
like I was telling the audience here at the crowd, or the many, many
The
listeners we've got,
giant crowd.
it's,
Is there enough bandwidth for all of this?
I mean, we'll never know. The internet is
No.
is at capacity with our
That's right.
listeners right here. But like I was gonna say, it's about keeping it fun for us.
Sure.
So, what do you think will be more fun for us?
I mean, here's the thing. I am positive that I already know what your 2-1 is. And I think if you know me the way that you know me, you probably already know what my 2-1 is.
I mean, I've known
So
what your 2-1 were the whole time.
I don't think that we are necessarily going to surprise each other.
That's,
And I
you know,
already have the wiki page for your number 2 pulled up in front of my face for
oh,
reference.
bold.
That's
Bold
how
of
bold I
you.
am.
Now I hope you're right. I'll give you my number 2.
All
I'll
right.
go into it. And here's the thing. I fully expected this to be my number 1 when I listened to it. I'll tell you that. I
Okay.
listened to this album first. And I was like, oh, this is going to be my number 1 album. Because I knew enough to know what I was going to be getting from the other albums. And I was shocked that it wasn't. And I'm going with Live at Budokan as my number 2.
There it is.
I really thought it was going to be my number 1 when I listened to it. It is a really, really strong live album. So I know what you're thinking, listeners, but you don't do live albums. What are
Yeah,
you
but we do
talking about?
sometimes.
And to that I say, very rarely we do. But
If
in
it's
Best of the Rest,
iconic
there are
to
no
the
rules.
artist.
In Best of the Rest, there are no
Yeah.
rules. It's
Right.
going to
And
be the best
also
of the rest.
in season 6.5, we did Frampton Comes Alive.
That's true.
So if a live album is essential to the artist catalog in the way that these 2 albums are,
Yeah.
I don't think it's unlikely that you would hear us discuss them.
Yeah. So this is, I put Live at Budokan. It's called Cheap Trick at Budokan or just at
Mhm.
Budokan. It's the first live album they came out with. It's by far their best selling recording. It was recorded at the Nippon Budokan in Tokyo. It was released in 1978 and it was excellent. And by that, I mean both as an album and as a live album. So, a couple things as an album, I thought that the track listing, the set list they chose for this was really strong. I felt the growth of the songs as we went. It was a really good build into itself. You got not the first recording of Surrender because it was just released. They talk about it on the album, but an excellent cover of Surrender, and you could tell that for a lot of the audience, it was maybe their first time hearing it
Mhm.
because you got a little bit of like they were singing along throughout this in a very unobtrusive way,
Sure.
which is I'll get into in a second. But they weren't singing along for Surrender, but you could tell that as the song got to like the halfway point, they were really into it. So you got a lot of really good stuff from it as an album, and then from a live album standpoint. So which we've talked about a couple times. We mentioned Frampton Comes Alive. We also did a maybe never aired at this point. I don't remember if we ever released it. A live album
Yeah,
episode.
we did. At
I know
least
we
one.
recorded it. I don't remember if it ever came out. I don't
I have
remember.
no idea.
Audio might have gotten corrupted. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. It
Fair
was
enough.
at least
Fish
2,
one.
maybe 3 years ago. But uh, the recording quality of this album is really, really strong. Every instrument comes through clearly, the vocals come through clearly, and there is clearly crowd mics, which I've heard live albums where there aren't crowd mics. They just have like an omnidirectional mic being used as the vocal mic to pick up a little bit of the crowd, but mostly the vocal. And you inevitably get a very flat sound. The point of having a live album isn't just to have an album where the band's playing live. There were a number of albums where the band plays live that aren't live albums. It's just the band playing through. Some bands, that's how they record. The point of a
Mhm.
live album is you want to feel like you're at that concert. And I think this album does a really good job of that. They have a really good integration in the crowd noise where it doesn't overpower the vocals or the sound at all, but it's constantly just bubbling under the surface. And it makes you feel the build with the audience. So I thought that was good. And I just thought that all the way through it was strong. Cheap Trick really surprised me this season when we covered them. It just I knew the song Surrender. I knew a little bit of Cheap Trick. I didn't know a ton of Cheap Trick. And I knew I Want You to Want Me and I knew Surrender.
Okay.
And I think that while both of those are on this album, everything else really surprised me about them. So they're my number two. That was my number two album.
Okay. So I think the disparity in where we have placed this particular album must be based on the version of the recordings that we listened to. I don't know if we've had like just different mixes of this record that were available to us or what the deal was. But I agree with pretty much everything you're saying about the energy of the show and the set list and the way that this album feels really designed to feel like a cohesive album and live performance at the same time. But the vast majority of what I listened to sounded like it was being performed inside of a tin can.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
Go
A serious question for you.
ahead.
This is not a knock at all on Apple Music. Did you listen to it through Apple Music?
I listened to it through Apple Music in my car, so I
Mm-hmm.
knew like it was good
Good
Bose
speakers. Yeah.
speakers.
Okay.
And it sounded like a tin can and the vocals were buried.
I have noticed for live albums in particular, because Apple Music has a processing that they put on their songs, which typically make studio recordings sound better.
Okay.
It's a higher level of audio. It does not work with live records.
Maybe that was it.
I have noticed that before. I got really into listening through my iPad to
Mhm.
Apple Music stuff a couple years ago, and I did notice that. And I completely forgot about it because I stopped using Apple Music. I don't have an iPhone. It's not worth me getting my iPad out to listen to music because at this point, like YouTube Music, Spotify, it all does close enough for me.
Sure.
But I have noticed that the high level of like fidelity processing that Apple Music does to release studio recorded tracks at such a high rate do end up messing with the live
Yeah.
recordings.
Okay. Well, that must be it because, like I said, I agree with all the positives. I think the performances were really good and energetic. I liked the set list. I just felt like the whole time I was like, and it maybe kind of got better by the B side, or maybe I was just adjusting to like the new paradigm of what music
Yeah,
sounded like as I was listening to the record. But it really was the sound that put this one at 4 for me on my list for
sure.
you, um, more than anything else. And I will say that the version of "I Want You to Want Me," the live version, that's the hit version. Like no one listens to the studio version of that song.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
live version. It starts, "I want you to want me," and I gotta say, like, it is super weird that he starts so many of the songs on this live album by just kind of announcing the title to the crowd.
I mean, it certainly
It's a
got
choice.
them
They were pumped
pumped.
for sure. But it's funny the way that came out. So I'm gonna move on to my number two. And this is the album I listened to this morning for the first time in my life. And I had zero expectation of it making it to number two. um, on my list. I have no idea how it got there. And then I listened to it and I started like, oh yeah, this one might compete for a spot in the middle. And then the tracks went on. And I'm like, wow, okay. There's a lot going on in this record. Wow, there's a lot of diversity here. Oh my god, this is not just a metal record. It's Love Drive by Scorpions.
Of course it is.
And it was their first gold album in the United States for I think very good reason. Like it's metal or like proto metal, but there's so much more mixed in with it that it really makes the heavier moments way more impactful because there's just so much, again, diversity in sound. How acoustic versus how heavy it is changes up quite a bit. Um, I think you have a couple of changes going on in personnel here. This is the first album with Matthias Yabs or Yabs, I don't know, on lead guitar, who is excellent. I really loved his leads on the song "Always Somewhere," which I thought was a beautiful song. You also actually get Michael Schenker playing lead guitar on about half of these tracks for the first time for his first appearance in Scorpion since their very first record, and he also really kills it. Um, and so I'm like, whoa, above expectations going through the first half of this album and into the back half, and then you get a couple of songs that kind of really push this one up. Like, is there anybody there where there's this pseudo reggae rhythm going on that I thought was super interesting? And then it closes on the track Holiday, which is just like this really beautiful build from a softer song into something that kind of just builds and builds and gets heavier and go like the development and the songwriting and the playing on this record all absolutely beat my expectations. I had I kind of just figured Scorpions was gonna be 4 or 5 coming into this, and then I heard Love Drive, and I'm like, "Oh, damn, like, this record just beat my expectations by so much," that it ended up going at number 2.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with you. I had this as your number one.
Yeah,
Uh
there you go.
it was a shock to me. Although maybe less of a shock to me because I remember how much we liked listening
Yeah,
to
I liked them a lot
Scorpions
too,
this
but
season. The vocals were stellar
yeah,
on this album. I mean, that's the only thing to say. Klaus Main was ridiculous. He was absolutely feeling himself this album. And you could tell there
sure.
is just an excessive amount of range and power in the vocals. It's very reminiscent of like the harder sound that Queen can get sometimes, in a good way for sure. I thought that it had a nice mix of like upbeat songs. All the songs were upbeat, but there was a nice mix between the really hard stuff and like a
Mhm.
little bit of a softer upbeat sound. I A real highlight for me, because Scorpions this season is maybe the number one redemption arc for me.
Sure,
In the fact that if you had asked me about Scorpions this time last year, I would have said, "Oh, they're that band that has like the naked little girl on one of their album covers. It's disgusting. I've never
sure.
heard them, but I don't
Which we
want
did
to."
also read about at the time during their
Yeah,
episode was, like, kind of forced on them by the record label.
exactly. And that more than anything really helped soften me to
Mhm.
Scorpions. Like we've all heard horror stories from the music industry, from any entertainment industry, from any industry. We've
Sure.
heard horror stories of the higher ups kind of forcing their will
Yeah.
upon the little guy, which the Scorpions were.
Yeah. Also,
They
this
are,
album cover was also not allowed in places like the United States.
yeah, it is quite strange. But this is just strange, and it's an adult
Yeah.
woman.
And they could not understand why. In fact, I for one of the guys in the band was like, I don't understand how America works. Like, it's also the only country that we go and tour in, and at every show we get flashed. This doesn't happen anywhere else, but also these are the same people who are like, you cannot have a breast on the cover of an album or our heads will
It's
explode.
almost
It's
like
very weird.
if you tell somebody no, they want to do it more.
That's a great point.
It it just seems like that. Like I've noticed, in a lot of other countries and a lot of other cultures, like their films and stuff may contain nudity, and it's like it's not sexualized
Yeah, right.
at all.
Sure.
It's just like, this person wouldn't be wearing a shirt while they're doing this thing. They're
Yeah.
just like they're getting up out of bed to go to the bathroom.
Right.
They're not, or like they just had sex.
Mhm.
Like I know that's sexualized, but like post coital, like you'll see in American TV or movies, like they're just weirdly with the covers like perfectly over their boot. Like nobody is like
Yeah.
that in real life. Not
No,
with the
I
person
agree.
that they're like like with. Like it'd be weird. I don't know. I'm not gonna go off on that, but
Yeah, fair enough.
uh
All right, time to move in.
definitely definitely an album that exceeded my expectations, a band that really redeemed themselves in my eyes and has put out like really good stuff.
Yep. totally.
So yeah, they were my
Yeah,
number
glad
one
that
for
we
you.
could explore a little bit more of their 70s discography.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so my number one, and this was the last album I listened to this week, and I put it on, and in about 10 seconds, I was like, because I was very anxious. I listened to the first four, and like I said, any of them could have gone anywhere. Like it was very close. They were all very good. And then I got 10 seconds in, and I was like, oh, okay, I've got my number one. Thank goodness. To be fair, this is of the five albums, this is one of only two that I've listened to several times that I was already very into. And it is The Grand Wazoo by the Mothers of Invention. And I really intentionally picked this because we were kind of going through looking at albums to do for the best of the rest ahead of time. And I'm like, I want to pick one that's going to sound very different from most of the other things we're going to cover this week. And this is one of the jazziest, fusioniest Mothers albums that would just kind of put us in a different headspace. And I, it, well, I'll say the first thing that's interesting about this is we talked during the Mothers episode about Frank Zappa's many like unfortunate injuries when he was playing with them and how he got like
Yeah.
thrown off stage and was wheelchair bound for a very long time, like while he was trying to recover. This was one of the albums he recorded while he was still confined to a wheelchair and recovering from his injuries. And I think it just includes some of his best arrangements ever because the arrangements on this record are insane. The Grand Wazoo itself is amazing. Cletus Alritis Alritis has a great arrangement. Blessed Relief has a great arrangement. I think George Duke on the keys is particularly brilliant. Um, really, really just shines through all this. And I love hearing opportunities for a little bit more than just the band. Like, we have listened to a lot of like maybe 6 or 7-piece Mothers albums when we did their um, episode, but we didn't listen to things like, you know, a 20-piece big band doing jazz fusion arrangements that were really interesting. So I like that you get to see a lot of Zappa's range as an artist and his ability to arrange for not just a rock band or not just a progressive rock band or not just like an avant-garde group, but for like a big band doing jazz fusion. Like that's a pretty I mean, I personally think Zappa is I mean, he's got to be in the conversation for one of the best composers and arrangers of the 20th century, like hands down.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with you. I enjoyed listening to this album as much as I could. I put it at number four, which honestly, for a an album that is progressive rock, jazz fusion, and mostly instrumental, to not be the clear cut number five is a win for the Grand Wazoo.
That's fair.
Uh, that's all. I mean, it's not my vibe. It's not my vibe. You know that.
That's how
I
I
know
felt
that.
about the Carpenters.
Of course, hey, and that's totally fine. I think one of the big things about music is that there's such a wide variety of it that it's all music, but some people like it and some people don't. I
That's true.
think
Can't argue with that.
I think the one thing that I'll give like Zappa and the Mothers credit for here is while it's not my vibe, it's not a style of music that I like love. I don't mind jazz fusion. I like jazz fusion. I just felt like I like hearing singing. I like hearing singing. That's my I'm very consistent in that. I like
That's fair.
hearing singing. I particularly like hearing good singing. And
That if
neither
I
of that
yeah, I
existed
would
on this
I will
album.
take no singing over bad singing any day of the week.
And I'm with you there. I will take no singing over bad singing, but I'll take good singing over both. And I think that's you're a little more
Yeah.
50-50 than I am.
I'll take good singing or no
Yeah.
singing at all and doesn't
Yeah.
either one is fine by me.
And
No preference.
that is definitely totally okay. I just, for me, we didn't get really any singing, and what little singing we did get was not trying to be singing.
Sure.
So it was down for me. But the arrangements were definitely really strong. I did hear the, the winding motifs throughout these instrumental pieces, and I recognized that they were very good. It's just not a style of music that I like to listen to in excess.
Sure.
So, which at 38 minutes, this is not what I would call excess.
No. No, I wouldn't either.
This is probably just the right amount of album for me to listen to this without being like, all right, okay.
Hmm.
And that's honestly, I'm into it. I'm fine with that. All right, so those are your five. I guess you want my number one, although
I do know what it is, and I
you
knew
know
what it
what it
was
is.
before we started.
Honestly, I when I picked my list, I thought this might be my number one.
Yeah,
I'd never heard it before,
me
but I
neither.
remembered how much I liked listening to this band during the season. They were a shock to me at how good they were. So when we picked it, I thought this might be my number one. And then I listened to Live at Budokan and went, oh, this might be my number one because I didn't have the audio trouble you had. I just had all the
Hmm.
good stuff. And then I got to it, and it's Utopia Parkway by Fountains of Wayne. It is my clear cut number one when I got to it. And it's literally just more of the excellence that Fountains of Wayne showed me during the season. Like Fountains of Wayne is a band that is known for singing Stacy's mom,
Sure.
and that is all a lot of people will know them as.
Yeah, kind of crazy now that we've listened to 4 of their albums.
Right. It is absolutely crazy because Chris Collingwood and Adam Schlesinger are incredible songwriters. I think that yet again you're getting an excellent variance of their sound. You're getting this like old school pop rock sound with like a little bit of like alt rock thrown in, maybe like some punk sprinkled on top, like a nice salted, like a little salt rim around the drink. It truly is a wonderful mix all the way through. You're getting really good vocals from Collingwood. You it's written with a depth that I would never have expected from this band before listening to them earlier this season.
Hmm.
And then every album I've listened to since, which is the three albums we listened to, and then this fourth one, I have avoided listening to any of their other albums until we got through this, and now I'll listen to the rest of them.
Yeah.
Because the consistency with which they write astounds me. That
Yeah, it's fair, totally fair.
it astounds me that like this is a time period where a lot of bands were kind of flash in the pan. There's a lot of bands that have one hit and then the rest of it sucks. Like we listened to a band in a similar time frame as Deep Blue Something.
Sure.
So they're a similar vibe on their genres, but Deep Blue Something had Breakfast at Tiffany's as their big hit and then kind of nothing else, but all the other songs kind of sucked. And this
Yeah.
is a band that's almost the exact opposite. Their big hit is by far their worst song.
Yeah, so it seems.
And
I would agree with you.
everything else is so much better.
Yeah.
And that's all I got to say.
Now,
It's a clear winner for me.
I agree. It was one of, like I said, there were 3 albums where I knew I was going to rank them once I finished listening to everything.
Mm-hmm.
My 1, your 1, and your 5. And Utopia Parkway was the clear 1. We talked about like on their first record, they were kind of maybe Weezer adjacent, but I feel
Yep.
like there's clearly a lot of growth out of that at this point. Their songwriting is diversified. Their part writing is super strong. Their lyric writing is very good. Um, and I'm gonna be honest, if I went into again, like this is one of the ways that we're opposites. Going into a record, it's 45 minutes long and there are 14 tracks. That's when I start to worry. That's when
Sure.
I'm like, how many of these tracks are filler? How much of this is not going to be engaging at all? Because when I see a 45-minute long album, I'm looking for 2 to 6 tracks.
Two. That's a
Uh,
hold on. I need everybody to know that's an insane thing that he just said.
sure,
Two is
2
too
is fine.
few. I would
2 is
say
good.
I would
One
say
side of the record for each song.
you're a psychopath. A more appropriate number that the average listener may look for a 45-minute album is, I would say, 6 to 10.
Okay,
Uh,
that's fine. But I see
you
my point being, I saw 14 different songs, and I started to get like, all right, well, there got to be some clunkers when you got 14. Why'd you shove them all in there? But no, that's not the case. All the songs were different and interesting and engaging, and the album was different and interesting, engaging all the way through. And Fountains of Wayne, you gained another 2 fans this season.
you really did. I mentioned when we covered your album Love Drive by Scorpions that Scorpions was the biggest redemption arc for us
Sure,
this season in terms of, if you'd asked us what we knew about them a year ago, it's only one very, very bad
sure,
thing. And then, coupled with the fact that they were also against the very bad thing and their music is really good, they're a big redemption story for us this season.
for sure.
Fountains of Wayne is clearly the surprise of the season for me.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, big spread. I mean, not that we're
Like,
gonna spoil anything that we might talk about on next week's show
yeah, no, we'll
when we're
we'll talk
giving
we'll
awards
talk
away.
more in depth about a bunch of individual awards that we'll be giving out next episode and for this season. Some of which are like, biggest disappointment,
Hmm.
uh, the highest and lowest of each of our categories. Our wait and see award, we'll that's a fun one.
Right.
So we got a lot of stuff planned, but I mean, always love best of the rest because
Agreed.
it's 10, usually 10 good albums.
You're right.
Usually you're getting every album that you're at least enjoying listen to, with few exceptions. I know you absolutely hated that Prince album that
Yeah,
we
I
did
did.
on
I
that one year,
hated
and
Sign of the Times.
yeah.
You want to hear something crazy?
Oh, tell me something crazy.
So I'm on Wikipedia, right? Because I have, that ready
Yeah, of course.
um, for whenever I need to reference something. And so I just quickly clicked back to the homepage. I looked at recent deaths because why not? Lou Dobbs just died.
No.
Oh, he's been a total asshole for 10 years at least,
Oh
if
yeah, I
not more.
know. I
Lou
just like
Dobbs
to
has
see.
been just awful. Like everything
Yeah,
he spews is venom and poison, and he's just a terrible person.
yeah.
But he did just die. So,
Well,
rip.
typically when you hear about conservative political commentators, we're not going to like them.
No, I mean, but it is just what it is. That's what he has done.
Yeah, let me be clear. My no is more the fact that, like, I don't like when things happen that draw attention away from things that should be talked about, and that's
Fair enough.
definitely one of them right now.
Yeah. All right.
As
Well,
I'm
I
sure
just
people will talk
sorry I
about.
told you. But I
Well,
saw like, wait a minute. I don't think he was dead yesterday.
wait
So
a
there
minute.
you go.
I don't think he was dead yesterday. What a comment.
All right. It was very important that our show included the death of Lou Dobbs, which happened during the recording of our show, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, of course. Rip Lou Dobbs.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Let's go
Okay.
over our rankings
Sure.
for each other. Just for ourselves and each other. I'll go first.
You got it.
So for yours, I had Love Drive, Trilogy, Into the Great Wide Open, Secret Treaties. No, I'm sorry. Grand Wazoo, Secret Treaties.
Yes.
That was my 1 through 5 for you.
And I
And then,
had Grand Wazoo, Love Drive, Trilogy, Into the Great Wide Open, and Secret Treaties.
okay. We agreed on some.
That's true.
You remember that one year where we agreed on
On
all of
like everything.
yours?
Yeah.
We agreed on, I think, all but one of mine and all
Yeah,
of
and all
yours.
of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the season where you chose Camel's fully instrumental album, The Snow Goose, as your number one. So
And what I will say is there's an exception to every rule.
that's right.
There's an exception to every rule, and Camel is truly the exception. Camel is the
So good.
exception to the rule for me on instrumental music because I feel like they pull prog rock in more of a classical way, and I like classical music.
Hmm.
And if I can
Well, I was gonna
feel,
say, I mean, Emerson, Lake and Palmer definitely pulls from that too.
oh yeah, for sure.
That and a lot of show tunes, like a lot of that type of music they pull from. I
I
mean, there
wonder
was an
why I
Aaron.
like them.
I think there was an Aaron Copland arrangement on Trilogy too.
There was.
Yeah,
There was.
there you
Love
go.
me some Aaron Copland. Love me some show tunes. I am a theater boy at
Yeah.
heart. Okay, and then my rankings for me were Utopia Parkway, Live at Budokan, Rough Mix, Close to You, and Revival.
Right. And I had those as Utopia Parkway, Rough Mix, Revival, Budokan, and Close to You.
Yep, little more movement on my list than your list for us.
A little bit.
But that's okay. It'd be
Yeah,
boring. It'd be boring if we always agreed.
that's true. And I
Yeah,
don't
like
think that's ever going
because
to
then we
happen.
wouldn't have that story of remember that one year where we all agreed, and it'd be
Yeah.
like remember every year when we just agree.
Didn't. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we'll find out if we're going to agree on our awards for the end of the season and then our season 7.5 trip to the 90s
Oh
coming up
yeah.
in the next few weeks.
I'll have to go start brewing my Nickelodeon slime now.
Ooh, yes. Please dump that on my head.
Or is it still called GAC at that point? I don't know.
No, it was slime.
It was slime.
That
There
was
is
slime.
something
Slime
GAC.
time
GAC is a
live.
thing.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I'll make some slime and I'll make some GAC just for good measure.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. Listen. All right? I'm not asking you. I am straight up telling you right now. Have a great day. All right.
Very good.
Oh, man. We've done it.
Yes, we have.
We've bested the rested.
Excellent. Yeah, tough one. But a good one. Best rest is always tough.
Yeah, it's always tough to rank them. And I mean, it is what it is on that. It's always going to be tough. we like they're by the very nature of having them all be good albums.
Yeah. I'm glad that the one spoke to me.
Yeah.
The one spoke to me. Everything else go from there.
Yeah, I mean, my one definitely. I knew as soon as you picked it that Grandma's Zoo would be your one. So,
I gave everything like a fair listen though.
yeah, of course.
I mean obviously Grandma Zoo I've heard 1,000 times before and I already knew that I was gonna love it. But
Yeah, I just know who you are as a
Love
human
Drive.
being, so I knew it would be your number one.
Love Drive found its way.
Love Drive
Found its way to number 2.
was
It was
excellent.
really good. It was
I had
really
nothing
good.
bad to say about it. That was the
Yeah.
thing. Like
I was like
I really had nothing bad to say
shocked that
about Wazoo either. It's just not my
Yeah.
music.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not for me.
Yeah, and let's see, what am I gonna do for the season 8 best of the rest? Who's gonna be on that?
You can't pick it already.
True, Fela Kuti is definitely gonna have an album in the best of the rest, though. I know that for sure. Because I have listened to his whole discography like 85 times.
Oh, do you want to hear the true dystopian world we live
I
in?
do. Is it that Lou Dobbs died?
Yeah, but it's about Lou Dobbs.
Oh, good.
Not his death, but his person. So Google has this thing where they'll like AI answer questions.
Oh yeah. I've seen this.
Yeah,
And it's often very wrong.
it's often very wrong. So I just typed in Lou Dobbs because I wanted to see if they mentioned how he died.
Right.
And the Google answer is because I just Googled Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs is a handsome political commentator, author, as well as host who stands at an ideal height of around 1.88 meters with a balanced body weight. He has blonde hair and light brown eyes color. And my response to that is all of that is wrong. He's
All of that
dead,
is wrong. Yeah.
and his hair
that's
is
a great
not
point.
blonde.
No. No.
He's no longer standing at any height.
Not at all.
I mean, truly, listen, I disagreed with 94.99% of every word that Lou Dobbs has spoken
Yeah.
since I have been following politics.
Right.
Still rest in peace. You're still a human being.
Yeah.
I'm a person who I'm a very empathetic person, and death is always a sad moment. So like, while I politically disagree with you and think you are not a great person for your ideals,
Yeah.
I still doesn't mean I wish death upon you. There's very few people throughout the world and history that I truly wish death upon.
No. Yeah.
Thankfully, the vast majority of them are dead.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
So,
Thank goodness for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right.
Well,
Well, listen.
we're for a week next week.
Oh gosh. We certainly are. I got to do all of that. All right. I should be able to get it done. It's just a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. As long as work's not too wild. But we don't have anything Sunday.
We do not.
And I don't think I have anything crazy going on Sunday. So I might be able to just sit down on Sunday for a couple hours and knock
Okay.
it out. That's my goal anyway. Cool.
Oh,
All
poor
right.
Jackie. She's having a bad Uber. You know it's
Oh.
bad Uber when she complains about the Jesus music. You'd be surprised, I guess, at how many people are out there floating around blaring nothing but Jesus music all the time.
See, if I ever drive for Uber, I will just play
The
Christmas
Grand
shoes on
Wazoo.
repeat. No, I'm
Oh,
just gonna play Christmas shoes on repeat.
Okay. It's a bold move.
Yeah, I mean, and the length of your Uber will determine how many times you hear Christmas shoes.
I'm going to Florida.
Listen, and I'll start telling people when they get in the car. I'll be like, "All right, you're going to here," and they'll be like, "Yep." And I'll be like, "All right, that's about 6."
That'll be about 6.
And they're like, "What does that mean?" I'll be like,
Don't
"You'll
worry about
find
it.
out."
Don't
Click.
worry about it. It's 6.
Sir, I want every just 6. We'll get to the end of the 6, and they'll be like, I understand now.
6.
Cool.
Oh, thank goodness there was traffic. There's time for a 7th.
I mean, listen.
The best
There
would be
are
if
worse songs to listen to on repeat
I
forever.
guess so, yeah. Yeah. That's
But
true.
not many.
No. I mean, the thing that you've really got to do though is instead of playing it on repeat like as a default, just like saying to your phone every 5 minutes, "Hey Siri," or "Hey Google," or whatever, "play Christmas Shoes by New Song." No, not you, my
You
iPad.
did
I'm
it.
not talking to you.
You did it.
Oh God.
As soon
But
as you
like you
said it, I
say the
was like,
thing.
"Oh, you're about to start hearing it."
Yeah, but if you just keep doing that, that's the ideal.
Oh man, that part of me wants to do that now.
Yeah, get a job. It can't be that hard. You're
Yeah,
responsible.
sure. All right.
Okay, I gotta pee. My bladder's gonna explode.
Yeah, no, go live your. Yeah, there's no break in this. There's no built-in break for you to
No,
go.
I know.
So, all right, go have fun.
Okay. Adios.
Adios. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. As always, we'll be back next week with our award show, and then we will continue on into the future. So, goodbye.